Well, welcome. We may have some traffic in town. It's crazy, so people who are coming through town may be here before the end of the day. But here we are. And I couldn't be more pleased. And also more, in a sense, on the spot that I put myself on the spot. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of a preview of coming attractions so you kind of see how the day is going to, and a little bit of what my expectations or hopes are. So I started this poetry project in a very one day at a time way. When COVID started and Susan and I came back up here and settled in, it was very hard to get a sense of what was happening to us. But it was clear that we were increasingly contracting from whatever our lives were to whatever our lives were going to become. And my classmates from my high school class, graduating class, formed a rough kind of email exchange just to kind of stay in touch. The beginning of that weaving of virtual connections that I think we all promoted and took advantage of. And I started to write poems about what it was like for me to be going through what we were going through, but I was just looking at what I was going through and Susan was going through and my near and dear ones. And it turned out that process of writing a poem became virtually a daily activity for over 2.5 years. And very few of you ever received a poem from me, but my classmates did. And it was enough for me to feel like there was somebody listening, even though I was listening and writing for myself. But I was also, I wanted to see if anybody was there, so to speak. And at the end of it, when sort of 2022 ended and we came into 2023, my daughter, who was my great promoter, said, "Dad, you gotta make a book." This would not have been my inclination. But I have done that, and that's the book that I'm sharing with you tonight, the parts of it. And in the course of making the book, and in reading some of the poems to some friends, and getting a response that was the response of, wow, this takes me back. Wow, this brings up memory. Wow, I can relate to that. It occurred to me that what I wanted to do, dared to think of doing, was to see if I couldn't take these poems out into this community, to a church, to a synagogue, to a classroom, to Woodland Pond, just to see if the poems could create conversation. If it was possible to stimulate a kind of community reflection through the poems about what we had all gone through collectively, but hadn't really had a chance as a community to sort of tease out the meanings and what lasted and what did we suffer. We've gone on at a great pace into our lives, catching up and going forward. And so the reason that we're videotaping isn't simply because my daughter has a grandiose sense of posterity, but because I'm hoping that we can quarry from this taping today some little snippets that will help me to open the door to the pastor, the rabbi, the educator, and say, this is what I can do. I'd love to come in and do it with you, with your students in your class, and with whatever. So that's the bottom line. The bottom line is that I'm going to share some of the poems with you, and So yes, the outline of the day. Poems in 3 parts. 2020, 2021, 2022. Between each part, there's going to be an opportunity for me to see if I can kind of get some sense of anything that might have landed or been stimulated in you. I don't want today to turn it into the kind of conversation I'd like to think could happen. But I'd like to see if it's possible to create, off of a poem, a kind of rapport. So we will have a reading, pause, reading, pause, reading, pause. And then I will invite you to turn your chairs, take a break, and recenter on the back of the room. So those of you who are in back will now be potentially in front, because a number of these poems have been lifted up into song by the people who will be representing them. And the title of this poem, of this book of poems, is Singing About the Dark Times. And for a very long time, I've had an aspiration to be able to write songs, but I don't have an ear for songs, for music. And so I've reached out to some friends who do and who volunteered to see if they could find the songs in this book. And some are here today, and that will be how we will end our afternoon, with listening to a half a dozen, 5 or 6 songs. The title of this book of poems comes from a rather famous little poem by Bertolt Brecht, a German playwright and artist. And he writes, "In the dark times, will there also be singing? Yes, there will be singing about the dark times." I'm going to say very little about the poems by way of preface, so don't worry. But this first poem is called Road Song, and it came to me as this is the only thing I've ever written that came to me as a song before it came to me as a poem. Susan and I were driving north from Florida to land here and to begin a life of back and forth between Florida and here, because we were just resettling. And I started to write a song, the very tune of which has been captured by Lou Glaser. You'll hear it. But in 2020, when we came up here knowing it was for good, chasing the closing of the borders because of COVID and the restrictions, I added the third and last verse. Road Song. The redbuds bloom on the Blue Ridge Mountains, where dogwoods spill down meadows green. It's early spring in Southern Virginia, where the sky is blue and the wind is keen. And you and I are traveling from then to then, from here to there, and we are singing a chant of travelers. One part is song, one part is prayer. The barn-freed cows of Pennsylvania are busy cropping in early spring. The lowly graze the thawing meadows. In woods beyond, there's twittering. What lies ahead remains uncertain. What lies behind is lost and gone. What spans between is you and me, girl. And we go on, and we go on. For you and I are traveling from home to home, from then to there, and we are singing a chant of travelers. One part is song, one part is prayer. So that's the transition into here, the Hudson Valley. And one of the things that I realized was that I was coming home to the Hudson Valley, having, as some of you know, started out many years ago, making really a home and a community here in the Hudson Valley, and returning, just still having threads and connections and family here. It's called placing. What is this place that calls you? What view, what soil, what hill? What is the scene that knows you? And what is the space you fill? For me, it's this Hudson Valley, where the stone cliffs rise up tall, where kitchen gardens flourish, and orchards fruit in the fall. The trails I learned by walking, though late to know their ways, a love that grows by going, where dappled light still plays. I know she will outlive me. This earth will absorb my breath. Her gravity is pulling me down. Her soil will bed my death. I grieve among the changes my greedy species wrought, but I give daily homage to the life that can't be bought, but rewards my mountain ambles in common company with this earth that I possess, though she possesses me. Going viral. Hands to face, rub my eyes. Hands to nose, to pick. Hands on rail, on knob, on wheel. Can I these habits kick? Shake a hand, reach out to help. The tactile niceties that form the web of social life, now risky courtesies. For everywhere a threat impends, the air itself a danger. Will this peril isolate, make each of us a stranger? Viral deaths accelerate, rumor travels faster, fear is fueling all of these in forecasts of disaster. Questions new and never asked demand consideration. Visit, or do we stay at home? Take public transportation? Attend a concert, game, or rally? Stockpile medicine or toilet paper? Each choice demands review. So now begins a long ordeal that reaches high and low. The strains of touch everyone. As viral now we go. And of course, then there was the news. The din and chaos of the news and politics surrounding these amazing days. So this is called a strangled cry. Nausea curdles to anger now. Appalled at the vile display, the elephants have run amok, while the castrate donkey brays. Limply droop the half-staff flags, while households feel the burn. No recourse left for those bereft. What are we to learn? The worst are rabid, selfish, armed. Contagion spawns their daring. The best stay sane and deal with pain, but we have lost all bearing. From the deck of the government, the veneer is peeling off. Corrupting power owns the hour, and impotus just scoffs. Daily, lawmen piss on laws, dismiss the simmering fray, drive the elephants to run amok, while the castrate donkeys bray. So I didn't want to get caught up in that energy. It was way beyond my bandwidth to take in that stuff. And I realized that I had to retract I had to work to find my center, my ground. And so this poem is a reflection of that. It's called In Practice. And it begins with 2 lines from the poet T.S. Eliot, in which he writes, "Teach us to care and not to care. Teach us to sit still." The poet spoke in words I keep, this paradox of care. For faced with the force of the morning news, all caring I cannot bear. Nor is dismissal possible, for every story brings its news of loss beyond my ken, and every story stings. My heart was made for what's at hand. My hand was made to touch. My eye was made to see and tear, and not to see too much. These global vistas of misery, anguish bringing fear, sufficient is my heart to feel for the sufferings right here. And even here there's more to weep, more caring than time can fit. I have more loves to care about than my energies permit. For as I age, I need more care, more time my needs will fill. So, in order to thread the needle, I must practice sitting still. And I dare say, and maybe just this on this particular poem, how many of you found that you deepened some practice to give you your center? Whether it was walking, writing, singing, dancing, sharing, caring. Exactly. And in fact, I've come to think that even though the virus was merciless, sparing no one, that those of us who brought to this time some inner process, meditation, reading, study, whatever, that we were very grateful. I was very grateful to have a practice. And that was what the poetry was for me. Okay. I mean, I'm not a capital P poet, but I can make poems. I liked it. I liked making them. And that was part of what kept me going and kept me in touch with others, but mostly myself. So I turned 79 in 2020. This is my birthday poem. 79 and feeling fine, except my heart is sore, for the death toll mounts and body counts make COVID seem like war. I've lived a life of privilege, untouched by harm or hate, no battles waged, no causes staged. I've been blessed by fate. And I'd hoped what my father hoped, that my children would inherit a better earth with increasing worth in which to shine by merit. But when I take a bird's eye view, though field and hill seem pure, their prospects dim, and my mood turns grim, their future seems unsure. What can an old man offer? What difference can he make? At 79, this dangerous time snuffs the candles on my cake. Blind Man's Bluff, another poem about practice. By the way, just if you get the book, one of the things that you will see in the book that you're not going to hear in my reading is that each poem is dated, and each poem has a number after the date that represents the number of deaths worldwide that occurred from COVID that week, the week I wrote the poem, established by the World Health Organization. So, for example, this poem was written on October 2nd, 2020. There were 37,545 deaths that week. So each poem is sort of written in relationship to the very big picture. Blind Man's Bluff. The weeks have turned to months by now. The seasons pass like dreams. Irregulars become the norm, and nothing is as it seems. My mind in spasms, sphincter-like, clutches and then releases. Uneasy in uncertainty, I grope for where the peace is. I want to know what's up and down, to figure out the ground. But in unprecedented times, no figure can be found. Each day I wake to ignorance, and blind must read the braille. Each day compose my peace of mind and tap along a trail. And the last poem I'll read you in 2020 is The Vaudevillian, and this is written, I'll give you this. This was written on the last day of 2020, 86,992 deaths that week. The Vaudevillian. I've known a girl with a hearty laugh. I've known a man who giggles. I've known a queer who dances smooth and another one who wiggles. I've known some clowns who cry real tears and fools who ride on swings. I've known a boy with a dandy dog who retrieves whatever he flings. And I've known the depths of darkness, and I know the break of dawn, what I have seen and I have been. So sooner here than gone. I just changed that line today. I don't have it in my head yet. For the days that come to pass with me become a vaudeville show in which I play a minor part. Then off the stage I go. For I've known the depths of darkness and known the break of dawn, what I have seen and I have been, so quickly come and gone. So that's 2020. And you were good enough to sort of indicate by raise of hands that you resonated with practice. And I'm curious, if we were to sort of expand this little possible sphere of recollection and storytelling, how many of you have the beginnings of some kind of story about this time, this early time, this first phase that we didn't know how long it would last? But how many of you have something surface from hearing these poems? Just float a hand. And obviously, if we had more time and slowed down and allowed each poem to find its resonance, we would probably have more possibilities for that. And that's, as I've said, my hope is to be able to take the raised hands in the room, in whatever room I might be able to take this to, and listen. This is more a recital of poems than it is a conversation. And that's just because I'm wanting to give myself the experience of sharing some poems. But it's not really what I want to be doing. I want to be interacting with people. So thank you very much, and now on to 2021. Very sweet of you. Thank you. I will say, for those of you who have an ear for what a poem is as an object, that many of the poems you've been hearing are rhymed and rhythmed. And that's not a particularly modern way to write poetry, in case you've looked at what's out there. And what I found was that, and this had to do with this aspiration I had to write songs, that I wanted to write something that could be a song, so that the form of those poems are called ballads. It's a very old form of poetry in English. And therefore it lends itself to many songs that are ballads. But every now and then I try to not write in rhyme. And here's a poem that I did not write in rhyme. January Etude. And I will say about this poem that there are a lot of poems in this little book that are Peter's poems about nature. And aside from writing poems and living my life with my wife, I spent a lot of time either watching the birds or hiking up on the mountain, and in fact just having an opportunity to be nurtured by the very, I don't know what to call it, that was in such peril every day. I mean, it was just, anyway. January Etude. Sunrise. Long shadows cross-hatch salt-whitened country roads. Snowbanks tell of plows and the work of muffled men at night to clear the way for early travelers. The yards and fields are glazed into a white meringue. Sparrows alight on the iced power lines. The late morning light cannot be taken straight, and the air is so still that chimney smoke lifts, goes nowhere, dissipates. In the afternoon, clouds arrive, and as if heavy from their travels, rest low with the sinking sun backlit. Their ruffled edges flare and then expel a gilded breath into the violet dusk. A visionary moon silhouettes the trees. White limbs click in a nocturnal wind. Nothing stirs in the forbidding cold. A contrail draws a silver line across eternal constellations. Oh, lovely. Thank you for that sigh. That was very much what being in my immediate environment would produce. I kind of like, On the other hand, there's a poem called Remedy. Give me a pill to replace my will, nothing funny about it. Give me a shot to loose the knot, I can't relax without it. Give me a smoke to get me high, my anxious mind's confused. Give me a hit and another quick, I can't abide the news. Give me a pill so I can sleep, I can't shut off my brain. Give me an opiate, any kind, to take away the pain. Give me a drink so I can think, and another to stop me thinking. My panic attack has taken hold and my very soul is sinking. Give me a drip instead of food, I have no time for eating. Give me a salve for the aching heart to still its furious beating. Give me a pill to replace my will, my motivation sucks. I'm so depressed I can't get dressed. Without a drug, I'm fucked. You know, it's funny, but it wasn't. It wasn't funny when you saw what was happening with alcohol and violence and drugs. I mean, it wasn't funny at all. But there was something frantic in our desperation to find some kind of relief. So I turned 80 on July 23rd in 2021. And this is the poem I wrote the day before I turned 80. It's called Perimeters. Perinatal, peripausal, peri-80, peer around. I've a sense of what's portending. What's been lost will not be found. Peri-slow and peri-limits, peri-shortness of the breath, pericardial, peri-peril, peri-dying, peri-death. Yet no peri-gloom assails me. Odd, I see more varied sights. Peri-tender, peri-wondrous, peri-touched with small delights. Peri-wisdom, in the shadow. Perry grace in going slow. Perry here and gone tomorrow. Perry gratefully I go. September, a poem called Passing. Above dawn's dark trees, the geese are flying. Underwings gleam as they glide and rise. No better sign of the season's turning than these migrations in the skies. No better sign than the gilding trees, the blue of evening, the waning light, the skittering leaves on the littered ground, and the breath of frost in the colder night. Autumn is coming with muffled drums. The virus overshades the season. For just the other side of here, the world I see has lost its reason. Walk with me, love. Attend a while. Let's pause beside the running stream before it's still in winter's grip. Let's reminisce. Let's dream. This one's called Falters. Misspeak. Now, I should say now, this is a good moment for me to indicate this, that one of the things that these poems are about is getting older. You know, I mean, I'm paying attention because I have to pay attention to the fact of how I am sleeping, eating, living, moving, able and not so able. And it's sort of like periodically having to take a kind of inventory of how I'm doing. So this is called Falters. Misspeaking comes more easily. My tongue is growing soft. Pauses end in stammers, and that name just drifted off. Misspellings haunt my fingers. My cursives now scrawl. I read less and less of the eye chart on the wall. Memory and fantasy are like a salad tossed. If I take the road less traveled, I always end up lost. It seems I move upon a bridge that sways above the void, faltering, yet oddly free. I'm less annoying, less annoyed. So I would have periodically sort of grandiose moods in which I would think about, well, what do I want to give the future? So this poem represents something of that. It's called Ritual Song. It's the last song in 2021, 12/13/21, 42,252 deaths on that week. Ritual Song. Find the ones who remember the song. Look till you find them, bind them long. Bring them home and listen well to the songs they sing and what they tell. Find the ones who know the fire. Look till you find them, buy or hire. Keep them close and sound their knell, and look to the flames that envision well. Find the ones who know the lore of all that grows on the forest floor. Hand them crucible, drum, and bell. Attend to the healing that plants impel. Find the ones who can read the sky, the clouds and winds as they pass by. Walk with them on hill and dell, and learn the weathers the clouds foretell. Find those who know the rites of earth, of peace and vow and grave and birth. Give them their due, attend them well, and honor their work your fears dispel. Find the ones who remember song. Look to Well, it just seemed to me really important that we honor those of us who can remember the songs of the earth. Because the way I foresaw things and still do, we're really going to need each other in a way that we've never understood before. I'm just see it. So find the ones who remember song. Look till you find them. Bind them long. Bring them home and listen well to the songs they sing and what they tell. So that's 2021. Well, I'm just going to read on. I'll assume you have stories to tell, and there's some time to tell them. Okay, again, we're in winter. This is the 13th day of January 2022, and there were 54,691 deaths that week. The poem's called Tracking. While the snow was fresh, I went to see what prints I might this morning find on my neighboring farmer's land, other than those of humankind. I slowed to trace a length of hop that a running rabbit might have made. By the barn I scried some chicken scratch, a duck walk told of a parade. I swear I saw a trail of bear, a broad pad with a hint of claws, and farther on the hooves of deer, and then a sprint of nails and paws. Just so winter was teaching me to read the signs on the sheets of snow, and behind, where I had lately been, I saw my lines a-wending go. Then my young wife, who lags behind me by, well anyway, this poem is called The Day Before Her 80th. A larking birthday out of town, as you approach your 4th score year. In trusting tryst, off we go to a salt sea verge where the seagulls cheer. Pearlescent light on the great South Bay, low tide, and the waters are at rest. The beach is strewn with oyster shells, and a veiled sun is gleaming in the west. You're shedding age with every step. You, whom I follow down the strand, I watch you stop and bend and find some sea-wrack treasure in the sand. Only the distant cheering of the gulls disturbs the stillness of the day. You take my hand as we turn back. Your smile is soft, your eyes are gay. You, water bearer, water born, aquarian of a timeless sea, you hold the pearl of the marriage shell and offer it for life with me. Spring fever. This is a little more than a year ago. We are coming up from our shelters, pale, blinking into sunlight, dazed, disoriented. Remember that? Kind of like, can we step out? Is it okay? Quarantine protocols are loosening. Unmasking, we dare. A kiss and hug a friend. The stores are filling. Restaurants are open. Snowdrops perk in sunny spots. I saw purple crocus yesterday. On warm mornings, we open the windows and let the outdoors in, as scent and color invite abandon Appetites so long suppressed are fevered by the lusts of spring. But how far do I dare to go to participate and join the show? How far do I dare to go to participate and join the show? And everyone I know had to make that calculation. Where are the lines to be drawn? And the yearning, I mean, I had this poem about, the niceties of touch, that we lose touch with people. Literally, we don't touch them. And the hunger to hug, to kiss, to embrace, to greet is very powerful in that spring. Meanwhile, there's still, on that week that I write this poem, 32,404 deaths. It ain't over. An upturned face. Yeah, I'm going to say something about my father here. Is that you, Ned, back there? God, Ned has a song about his father. Every time he chants it, I weep. God. Anyway, yeah, I can tell this little story. So when I was 11 and 12 years old, and my parents divorced when I was 7, and I was going to a day school in New York City, and I was an acting out kid. I know you find that hard to imagine, some of you remember that, but believe me, I was. And my school, collegiate school in New York for boys, had a punishment. Like if you were bad, you had to stay in school on Friday afternoon and just sit at a desk. Well, it didn't deter me. So my father decided that he needed to make the punishment stick more. And he said, Peter, you're going to have to memorize 50 lines of poetry before you have dinner on Friday night. 50 lines of poetry, 11 and 12 years old, before I could have dinner on Friday night. Isn't it amazing that I can stand here and read you poems? It's a miracle. So this is a poem really about my dad. It's called An Upturned Face. A wild June wind threshing the canopies. Sounds like the distant surging of the sea. I turn my face up into the waving arms and fluttering light. And a memory comes to me. The last photograph I took of my father. Once upon a time, there was a gap between a picture taken and its development. Remember film? No. After his quiet death and grief's distractions, it was weeks before I got the prints back. And there he is, the last picture on the roll. He's gazing up into the trees in our backyard, face upturned, as if to receive a wonder. When I saw the picture, I cried. He was 3 years older than I am now when he died. Near things. I live in more content of late, am social when I can, seek at times my solitude as a happily married man. I live with her and she with me. For us, it's not so hard to find the world and what we need right in our own backyard. Delight needs not variety. Pleasures in presence come. It's too much stimulation that makes my spirit numb. Age is a factor in my content. It holds me to the here, and in my smaller daily round, near things are more dear. So, this is what I was learning. I mean, the poems that really express what I'm learning in this time. They're not things I knew and certainly didn't know enough to be able to make a poem. The poem was the way I kind of understood, in a sense, what I was knowing. This is called the illusionists. Meanwhile, there's the computer world, which of course is the primary window through which I'm forced to experience much of the world. And I'm, aware of the turmoil of apps and blah, blah. And now there's AI. Anyway, the illusionists. We're living now in a trompe-l'oeil world. A hall of mirrors, Coney style. Seeing, believing, but our real has been prefigured all the while. Now AI comes with more deception. Immersive entertainments bloom like silk flowers in the multiverse in a perfect stage-set leisure room. The algorithmics nerd and code conjure spells on their machines, spook us with their simulations, and entrain us to our virtual dreams. Perhaps this leads to a better world. I know it isn't made for me. I seek a more embodied life of touch and spontaneity. Just a couple more. Yes, maybe this is one more. I'm not sure. This is the last poem in the book. 12/31/22. Last day of 2022. 38,403 deaths. Tick-tock. Growing old. I'm growing in aging. It's changing my knowing. I am growing by bowing to where I am going. What is the growth, you ask of me now? I let go the why and attend to the how. As I am accepting what I can't control, the wider the smile, more quiet the soul. More dear the beloved, more cherished the light, more useless to worry, more acquainted with night. The pinch and the ache, the limiting pain, diminishments sure, but I still feel more sane for admitting whatever this ending will bring and finding with all that this old bird can sing. The future, I see it. It's foolish to fear. And meanwhile, the present, enlarging, is here. Is here where I'm learning to sigh and to bow. Here in this widening, wondering now. This growing towards dying changes my knowing. In bowing, I'm growing towards where I am going. Thank you. Well, we're going to shift our chairs and take a break, but before we do, I think the thing that I know to be difficult about poetry is that at its best it puts you into an inner place that can be so deep that it's hard to come out from it and then chat or tell a story. I mean, I know there's a gap there. And I kind of gave myself permission in this, as I said, to have a recital, to just put some of the poems out there. And, I'd love to sell a book, but that's not the point, really. I've never done this before. This is the first poetry reading I've ever given, short of when Larry and I would do readings together. Larry Winters and I would do readings together in small groups, but it was like, that was different somehow from this. This is like, so I want to thank you for coming and allowing me to hear myself. because I would not hear myself otherwise.
Peter, do you want to hear some?
And yeah, I thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan, I would be very happy to hear any responses you have. Thank you. Yes.
To say something. The earlier poems, if I remember correctly, was about nature and such. And I think you know that I first came to New Paltz in 1976, rock climbing, and I met Maureen, my partner, 39 years ago. And I think there's a saying about once you come to the gunks, at least in climbing, you always come back.
Uh-huh.
And having met you just a year ago, this circle is now complete, and it's heavily based in nature.
And, you know, and this goes back to that one of the first poems I read about place. You know, for me, it's the Hudson Valley where the mountains, the stone cliffs rise up tall. And there's just no doubt about the fact that this really does feel like a very special place to live. You know, and it's dotted with talent and caring and fertility. And then it's a place where you make connections. You know, you meet somebody and you find that there's more in common than you might expect on a city street or something like that. So yeah, thank you. Anybody else want to say anything? Susan?
I'd like to say about the decision to move back here. As soon as we read about COVID, we knew that this was going to be a really big deal and that we could very well get stuck in Florida for the summer. And we went, oh no, we don't want to be in Florida for the summer. And we just packed up within a week and headed north. And it became so clear that if we ever had to make a choice, we would always rather be here than there. And then we thought, well, then why are we going back and forth? You know, and that's what got us. That's what moved us here to stay.
So we've been all in.
We were
for a couple of years now. You know, we were snowbirds. We were yeah. Giuseppe.
Yes, Peter. Oh my gosh. Your poetry brought me so deeply back to. I didn't notice it at the time, but in retrospect, this very intimate conversation I was having all those years between the quiet joys and the deep sorrows of that time. And
I just want to echo, just in case that Joseph's voice did not carry his contact in that time with the quiet joys and sorrows.
And now as I relish ride on the waves of your poetry, I feel equal regard for both the joys and the sorrows. They both contribute to who I am becoming, and I feel your poetry really celebrates both of those.
I certainly feel that if there's one thing that happens in the poems, it's this kind of story of increasing acceptance. Thank you. Jonathan.
So I just want to appreciate your choice of the ballad form. I think you have one line about hills and fields are pure, or something like that. And the ballad form, with its stanzas and its rhymes and its emotions, brings me back to, you know, a time, well, when I was a child, but also this sense of life being simple and close to nature.
It's very interesting.
And, you know, core values.
Yeah.
So I really like your choice of ballad.
Thank you. If you couldn't hear, Jonathan was remarking on the fact that I chose and seemed to return to a particular form, a ballad form, and what it traditionally stands for, the period that it evolves in, this period, very, very different from our own. And I do want to say that writing in this ballad form had a very strange effect on me as a writing person, because I'd never had a form before. I'd write a poem, but it wouldn't have a form. But once I started writing these with their very, very fixed and predictable form, metered up, at a certain point after, 100 of these, it was like muscle memory. A thought or a feeling would come to me, I could balladize it. So there's something about the relationship of formal forms to the continuity of both the history of poetry, but the continuity of life. It somehow is closer, feels closer to the ground. Jonathan was saying something like this. It evokes and invites a different kind of language from the, I don't know. Thank you. Yes. Good. So, yes, please, Ned.
Two things. I think it was Robert Frost who was once asked, why do you write rhyming poetry? And he said, would you like to play tennis without a net? And the other thing is that it's wonderful to feel the companionship of another 80-plus man in some of the things that you talk about, the slipping memories and the fragility of our physical natures and so on. It's really sweet to feel that connection, because that's where I am too.
I really appreciate that, and the fact is, my stepbrother Jonathan Fox and I have talked about this time that we have to live longer than generations before us, into a period of life that was never really been explored or mapped in poetry and song and film, that we're beginning, to know, because we are geriatric pioneers. and so this body of work, you're right, man. It'll land wherever it lands, but if you're our age, it's going to land somewhere else. Yeah. All right. So
makes you feel less alone.
Pardon?
Makes you feel less alone.
Thank you for that. And I think that's why I want to take these songs into places where people could feel somehow less alone with their stories, because one of the things about age is that it does contract you. It's just you have to draw down and draw in if there's an in to go to. If there's not an in to go to, it's a terrible time. But when I write a poem called "Growing Old," I ask myself, what's the growing in growing old? God, you're growing old. Okay. Well, and so you talk to her, you're growing up. What? Growing. Well, what's the growing and growing old? And I'm devoted to finding it.
I'll have a great time meeting you.
And I just want to appreciate that as you were reading your poetry, I was appreciating how much you and Susan returned to your community, and that almost 50 years ago, this was the horse barn.
Yeah. So for
Literally,
those, thank you.
there were horses in here, and he renovated it.
So once upon a time, this lady and I moved up from New York, had a family, built a house. Next door was not empty, was a farm. The farmer was selling. We were worried about having a development here, and I'd always wanted to start a school for children. And lo and behold, my daughter Karali was like 4, 5, and I started a little school called Friends on the Mountain. And it was here, and Stuart Bigley and I, I put this floor down. I hammered this fucking floor down. and part of coming back was coming back to Unison, where you are situated, and which I hope will continue to have life, but whose purpose now seems more and more clear to me to be a purpose about gathering community and getting to know one another, not just performing things, which is fine, because performance, as you'll see, is delicious. But there are other ways for us to confer and communicate, to create story circles, and to share stories. And I built a field hearth out at the bottom of the meadow in the hopes that we would have fires together. So, yeah, it's a big circle. For surely it is. Yeah. All right, my dears, I bless your hearts. What I'm going to invite so what we're heading into is a little song fest, and I think the timing is great. It's a little after 4. Stretch, nibble. The artwork, I just want to point to it. I dare say something about it. So the pictures on the wall are the work of an artist whose work is being hung here. But what you see on the tables is work that I've done, and they are rather like ballads in that they're quite formed and structured, and yet have a certain variety in them. They look like mandalas, but I call them randalas because they're random. And I don't, mandalas once represented a cosmology, a coherent cosmology. And I don't know that I live in a coherent cosmology, or if it's coherent, is way beyond the geometries and formal mandalas. So these are kind of representations of the gestalt that I made as part of my practice during this time. So take a look, have a snack, drink some Prosecco, for God's sake. And I want to invite you to turn your chairs around, and we'll eliminate some and squeeze in, because we're going to go into a little song fest with my new musician friends. Oh my, more musicians in my life. Okay, take a break. And as I said, I don't have an ear for music in terms of being able to hear what could be a song in my poems. But Lou Glazer, Gene Cotton, Rob, and my wife have been able to hear the music and give me the music to these songs. So here it goes.
So, just, I hope you're kind of buzzed and enjoying this moment. My name is Leo. Just like that. This first song we're going to sing is from the 2020 section of the poems. It's the Road Song, and
which is the first poem you read today.
Correct. First poem in the book.
The redbuds bloom on the Blue Ridge Mountains, where dogwood spill down meadows green. It's early spring in Southern Virginia, where the sky is blue and the wind is keen, and you and I are traveling from home to home, from then to there, and we are singing a chant of travelers, one part song, one part prayer. The barn-free cows of Pennsylvania are busy cropping in early spring. They lowly graze the thawing meadows in woods beyond, there's twittering you and I are traveling from home to home, from then to there, and we are singing a chant of travelers, one part song, one part prayer. What lies ahead remains uncertain. What lies behind is lost and gone. What spans between is you and me, love. And we go on, and we go on, for you and I are traveling from home to home, from then to there, and we are singing a chant of travelers, one part song, one part prayer, and we are singing a chant of travelers, one part song, one part prayer. Nice. How nice that
Leo?
Yes.
Do them both.
Okay, do both. All right. So, this is a poem that Peter wrote called Digging for Treasure. Digging like a man at the end of his rope, straight and sober and kick the dough. For me, this treasure's the very last hope. I hear this treasure down there. I hear this treasure down there. Silt is thick at the bottom of the bog, where a gator floats like a lethal log, and the stink of rot in the air is a fog. There's got to be treasure down there. There's got to be treasure down there. It's not just me I'm digging for, 'cause the one I love needs it even more. Him I heard a long time before. I'm digging for treasure for him. I'm digging for treasure for him. Oh. Well, I ain't there yet. I'm down on my knees. The sun setting through the cypress trees. I'm feeling around and praying, please let me find salvation down there. Let me find salvation. Let me find salvation down there. Oh. So this song, this poem, it's called The Midnight Blues. There you go. Yeah, feel free to, move around a little bit. Happy, get up. There's no time to lose. I'll shine you up, I'll tie your shoes. Let's go shake these midnight blues. Shake these midnight blues. See the moon is up and floating free. The music's playing a little off key. One more dance, you got with me. One more dance with me. Happy woke up with nothing to lose. Tried to dress and tie his shoes, but then he laid back for a little snooze and he sighed. Oh, the midnight blues. Then the moon went blank like a blind man's eye. The moon slid down from the midnight sky. It was a fearful time to say goodbye. A fearful time to say goodbye. Happy he rested, he paid some dues. COVID got him, now he's through. And he left me singing the midnight blues. These lonesome midnight blues. So we're going to bring Susan and Gene Cotton up to do a tune.
While Gene's getting his guitar out, I'll tell you that during that first year particularly, when we were going nowhere, except the house in the backyard, we spent a fair number of days walking around the lake at Minnewaska and hiking up in the mountains. And this song that we're going to sing came out of that.
Get the mic closer to you.
Could you hear me?
Yes, but you're not quite mic'd.
That's okay, we're not going to be late.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go without. I was just want to say one word about form because Peter said something about it. That ballad form, I think, is the connection to music to me. If something rhymes, first of all, and has a rhythm to it, then the audience already has something to hang on to, and it's a powerful thing for sure. So when Peter sent me this poem, it was just 3 stanzas, boom, or 4 stanzas maybe with the bridge, and it worked out perfectly. And he said it sounded to him like a waltz, and sure enough, it's going to be a waltz.
There's a zone beyond the middle years where marriage ripens true, when two are one and also two, and years are many and the years are few, and time disappears. Such are the days as winter nears, crickets singing in the maple trees, people's peeping, and bees are buzzed, and roses bloom in the gentle breeze, and time disappears. Early one morning we head out of town to a mountain trail around the lake, where light will soften and leaves drift down. Our talk is slow, of give and take, and time disappears. There's a zone beyond the middle years where 9 to 5 is done, when two are one and also two, and years are many and the years are few, and just enough seems very good. And time, and time, and time disappears.
So this poem is clearing the space for love. Also a bit of a waltz. Gotta empty the attic, clear out the cellar, and go through the files in the drawers. All the furniture's heavy, it's getting in my way. I wanna dance on my floors, so love can come in like a guest or a bride. I'm ready to dance with you, and all she asks in return, my friend, is to clear my heart for some room. I'm clearing a space for love. Oh, I got some folks that'll give me a hand with the lifting, shifting, and purge. I'm pitching the old, serve me quite well, but it's love that's prompting this urge. I want love to come in like a guest or a bride, ready to dance her tune. And all she asks in return, my friend, is to clear my heart for some room. I'm clearing a space for love. Now I've done the work, some help from my friends. The shine has returned to the space. All the doorways open, the windows are clear. Love is finding her place. For she's come, and there's a guest and a bride. I'm dancing a waltz to her tune. And all she asks in return, my friend, is to clear my heart for some room. I've cleared a space for love. I've met Peter on a number of levels, and to collaborate with him on putting these wonderful thoughts and words and emotions into music has been very special for me. Great honor, it's a great pleasure. So this last poem, song, it's called Going Nowhere Slowly. Nowhere slowly is the way I'm getting older. The prospect of my dying seems to concentrate the mind. Former deeds and projects have been filed into the folder. And going nowhere slowly is the best pace I can find. For the moon is my companion. The clouds will come and go. Solitude is precious. Are the loves I know. Going nowhere slowly is full of small surprises. I feel in ways I'm younger than I have ever been. Not knowing opens wonder, and innocence surprises. For I have shed regrets and forgiven all my sins. For the moon is my companion. The clouds will come and go. Solitude is precious, as are the loves I know. You, my friends, can go this way in trust and greater ease. Fear not the apparitions. They haunt a sleepless night. Nor resist the gaze of strangers. They may only wish to please. For going nowhere slowly allows you to go light. Let the moon be your companion. The clouds will come and go. Solitude is precious, as are the loves you know.
So, thank you for coming. Would you look under your chairs in case there's a wine glass there that you might knock over when you get up? And feel free to schmooze, to linger, but the festival is over. Thank you for